Hello friends! Today I wanted to talk to you about how I track my finances as a small business. And it's kind of evolved over the years, so it hasn't always been like this exactly, but I'm going to talk to you about how I currently track finances, with maybe some information scattered in there about how it's changed from the past. So to start out with, I track my inventory in a Google spreadsheet along with all of my finances. This Google spreadsheet is kind of the main source of truth for my business, and I try my best to keep it as updated as possible. So one really big difficulty with tracking inventory is that I have sales across different platforms. So I have my online shop that has sales and tracks inventory there. I have my in-person markets that I bring inventory to and sell. And I also have a wholesale platform that I sell inventory out of. And so these three different platforms require me to have inventory updated in these three separate spots. And these three spots don't necessarily talk to each other very well. There might be integrations out there that I could use or software that I could pay for to have these integrated into, but I don't think I make enough to purchase these tools that might let me integrate these. And the base integrations for these tools, I have not found a way for it to work for me. So my solution is to track all of my restocks and my sales in this one space in the Google Sheet. That way, I have one source of truth for what my inventory actually is on hand. And this required some finagling because I also track all of my finances in this same sheet. And in order to track my finances, I want to be able to see what the total amount coming in as well as what the actual profit is. And so profit, for me at least, means minus the item manufacturing cost. So if it's a print, minus the amount used for paper and for printing that. If it's a sticker, minus the manufacturing cost for that. And if I am restocking items at different points, these costs might change because the economy is changing and all of the different prices are changing. And so I want to be sure that my profit information is as accurate as possible. So let's say I start the year off with 5 stickers that cost 50 cents each, and in March I restocked these stickers, so I added 10 more, but this time they were at 75 cents each. I don't want any sales that I made between January and March to be affected by this new price because I didn't have these new stickers that had the 75 cents each prior to the beginning of March. So any sales before the beginning of March should be associated with the 75-cent margin. So I was able to accomplish this through much trial and error. And the way that my spreadsheet is set up is that it will check the date of the sale against the date of the inventory restock and then match those two things in order to decide what the correct profit margin should be. One other new thing for specifically this year is I moved my product tracking rather than tracking by name over to tracking by product SKU. This is really just for myself to be able to standardize what the items are more so, because previously I was just kind of throwing out random names and kind of just relying on my own memory to remember what those names were and whether they were relevant or not. In addition to this, I often wasn't tracking product variants. So if you look at my Gus Pride stickers, there's a whole bunch of different flags, but I wasn't actively tracking the specific flags. I was just tracking the overall Gus Pride stickers. This is because previously I wasn't tracking inventory, so that wasn't as big of a deal. But now that I was tracking inventory, I had to make sure that I was actively tracking the different variants for the different items. And SKUs also helped to make that easier, just because I could put V1, V2, V3, and make sure that they were all nested under that common SKU. That would be the first part of it. So really, SKUs are just for me for organizing. One thing that I have been doing for the past couple of years is making sure that my spreadsheet is set up in a way that makes doing taxes easier. If you are a fellow small business owner, you may know that Washington state taxes requires you to split out your income by tax area. So it's not by zip code necessarily, it's specifically by tax code. So the one that I remember the most, because it is where I have most of my income, is 1726, is most of Seattle. And Seattle, of course, has a bunch of different zip codes, but is covered mostly by one tax location code. So rather than having to split out my income by tax code at the end of the year, some people end up having quarterly taxes. For some reason, I have annual sales tax for Washington state. I don't know why it's different from so many of my other small business friends, but for some reason it is. I am able to simply look at my sheet and see the tax area codes that I have had income in, and look at the taxable income, the amount of taxes I collected, because I do collect sales tax at markets and online, and then easily transfer that into the Washington Department of Revenue website, where I actually submit those taxes. And this just makes it a lot easier to do sales tax at the end of the year, because I'm not having to go by zip code and look up what tax code that is equivalent to, and I don't have to then go and add up all of the income and all of the taxes that I had already collected, and make sure that I'm excluding places that aren't in Washington, because I do have occasional sales to other states. So it just makes it a lot easier. And so that is specific for sales tax. Please note that none of this is any tax advice. I am not a tax professional. I cannot advise you in any way. I'm just letting you know how I do things, and maybe that'll help you figure out how you want to do things. But please do not take any of this as advice on what to do regarding your taxes. So that was sales tax, Washington state sales tax to be specific. I am a sole proprietorship, which means that I file my federal business taxes along with any other income that I get. And in order to do that, there are a couple of different information pieces that I need when I go to file these federal annual taxes. One of those things is expenses and the category of those expenses. And so I've set it up so that I track all of my expenses and what they were specifically used for. Another thing is the value of inventory on hand at the beginning and at the end of the year. And this is something that I hope my new inventory sheet will also help in, but it's not something that I have specifically tried to address, because it's usually fairly easy to get this number. But hopefully the inventory sheet will make it even easier to obtain this number of the value. And the final part about my finance tracking is, of course, data visualizations. If you've read any of my newsletters, you probably know that I am a big fan of data visualizations and being able to really easily see what the state of things are. And so I have data visualizations in my Google Sheet that are showing me the current financial picture of NMC Design Studios. So as you can see right now, I am in the negative, And you can see from my expenses that most of the expenses that I have had this year have been event fees and purchasing product. And this is because I have a few higher cost events that I am going to this year. This year I have put a focus on trying out conventions more so SakuraCon and GeekFest West will be two of those conventions that I will be trying out this year. And something that I noted from last year, using these same types of visualizations actually, is that I got a lot of sales and profit from Pride events specifically. And so this year, instead of just doing Pride in the Park and Capitol Hill Seattle Pride, I have also tacked on the Seattle Center Pride. And this of course means more money up front because I'm adding in another event. That does cost quite a bit, but I think in the end it will be worth it, hopefully, crossing our fingers. But this is something that most artists, small businesses who do go to markets have to contend with. There are these upfront costs of attending these markets because of the market fee. And depending on what markets you're going to, it can cost anywhere from being free to being pretty cheap, like $20 to $100, all the way up to like $450 to $500 for an event. One of the positives about having my inventory tracked in one place means that I can really easily see what I need to reorder. For example, I just went and reordered some stickers as well as ordered some new stickers, but having the list of what I currently have on hand is really helpful in looking and seeing what's low, what's out, so that way I can easily pull in what needs to be reordered. If you're looking to set up something similar for your own small business, I would suggest double checking what the sales tax looks like in your state or your area, just so you can make sure that you're accounting for everything needed for your specific area, because I've designed my sheet for Washington State, but obviously that's not the same as everywhere else. I would also suggest looking at what your specific expense categories are. Mine are specifically designed for my art business. I create art that utilizes me gathering materials rather than specifically purchasing product, but I also do purchase product. So because of that, I have two different categories for that. I have a materials and I have a product category for my expenses, but that might not be as relevant to you. I do have a blank copy of my spreadsheet available on Ko-fi. It is free to use with a suggested donation of $5 because I did put a lot of time and effort into making this spreadsheet. Along with the blank copy of the spreadsheet, there is a blog post type thing with more information about how this spreadsheet has evolved from years past. I didn't really get that much into it, and more so just talking about how I use it overall. So that link will be in the description below. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. I put out videos relating to art and art business every Monday, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.